Running the option on first down. Hagan has it. He has room. He's got one man to beat. Now he pitches to Flanagan, and he may take it all the way. Flanagan's in for the touchdown.
McKinley Wright from the logo. Oh, got it! Oh, McKinley Wright.
Breaks a tackle. Touchdown. Touchdown. That's 5 for Chris Brown.
The defense of Tomlinson. Colorado is going to the NCAA tournament.
Stewart with time. Lets it go. He's got 3 people down there. The ball's up in the air. Caught. Touchdown. Caught by Westbrook for a touchdown.
I think they like my Colorado swag. Cause when I'm in that play, I don't really know just how to act. And when I'm in it go, you know I'm acting bad. Holly get a bus with my Colorado swag. My Colorado swag. My Colorado swag.
Welcome into the DNVR Buffs podcast presented by the Colorado XOs. I'm Henry Chisholm, and we've got an awesome guest back again this week, Matt McChesney. How's it going?
Good, brother. How are you? Go Buffs.
Not bad. I just got up to Boulder. I guess just got back down from Boulder. Had a chance to talk with Christian Gonzalez, who I thought played really well, with Robert Barnes, who made his debut as a Buff. Some good stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're eager to move on to Minnesota and and get that taste out of their mouth. The Texas A&M game was frustrating, but it's there's so many good things that came out of it as well. So it's all about how you look at it at this point.
Exactly. Where are you at this point? I know that you were pretty disappointed in the ending of that game. At what point were you able to kind of move on and say, like, this was a good thing for Colorado that happened today? That they proved a lot to a lot of people, even if they didn't get the result that they wanted.
I don't think I'll ever just fully get over the fact that they blew a game where they should have beat the number 5 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I am also of the mindset that the game should have been in Folsom.
Yep.
And I hope in the future we don't vacate our advantage at Folsom Field just because we want to accommodate a bunch of other people's fans. That's just my opinion.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean it really kind of pisses me off. I'm not going to lie, Henry. So, I am of this mindset. I think that the defense, and I've been saying this for months, brother. I think the defense is elite. And I think that Coach Wilson is going to, if this defense goes from 31 points a game or whatever the hell they gave up last year to what are they giving up now? Like 10, 8, 9, something like that in the first 2 games, average 10 and 7. He could be here for a year and get plucked as a head coach with the turnaround we've seen just in those 2 weeks. I mean, that was the first time that A&M has been held under 100 yards rushing in like 2 years. So since LSU did it when they won the national title. So I think that the defense is elite. I think that they're going to carry this team through what could be an 8, 9, 10 win season if they do it right. And I hope and pray as a Buff alum and faithful that they can find a way to maximize all of their offensive talent. But the play calling in the game was not good. And the short yardage play calling was bad. The red zone play calling was bad. And I'm not saying that it can't be fixed. I'm saying at some point a tiger has the stripes it has. So I am hoping that they can kind of diversify a little bit this week against Minnesota and look at some of the bad things they did in the game. And instead of just lingering on the negatives, like so many people are, myself included, find a way to fix it and make it a positive and learn from that offensively. Now that's going to be the key to growth with this team, in my opinion. So the offense has got to support the defense because the defense is damn sure supporting the offense.
It was an incredible defensive effort. We're going to dig into the offense in a second. I have some questions about this defense, though. First of all, I want to keep it simple. I think that was a great defensive performance at all 3 levels. But if you had to pick defensive line, linebackers, secondary, which group stood out the most to you?
The linebackers.
I think so.
Mainly just Nate Landman. Bro.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some pretty good linebackers in my day, and I played with guys like Jay Sean Sykes and Sean Tufts and Jordan Dizon and Brian Ewu, and I've never seen anybody play like Nate plays. And he missed
solo tackles. Just an unbelievable number. All alone, 10 just him.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, especially against a team like that. And he was all over the place. And knowing Nate, I think he's going to be more pissed off about the interception that went through his hands that he could have scored on, and the sack that he missed on a dead blitz. But I think other than Chad Muma at Wyoming, who's an unbelievably good linebacker, Nate Landman should be the front runner for the Buckeyes. I'd say those two are probably 1 and 2 in my opinion in the country right now. So Landman really showed me something. We talked about this at the beginning of the year, Henry, when we did the show, but I specifically remember saying that game is going to determine who's a pro and who's not.
Yep.
And in my opinion, I think Lang is a draftable player. I think Landman is obviously draftable. Carson Wells is draftable, although we didn't hear Carson's name that much against A&M for some reason. And I don't know if they just did a good job negating the pass rush from the edges or what was going on there. Robert Barnes played well, but the defense as a unit, everybody, after playing for Coach Wilson as long as I did, everybody's got a job, and everybody either plays hard or you don't play. And you are either the meanest son bitch on the field, or he'll find somebody that will do it. And the characteristics that I grew up with at CU and how I was taught football, that's it right there. You play hard nosed all the fucking time, and you either bloody the other man's lip or he bloodies yours. And this unit has bought into that mindset in a way that I'm so excited about the potential of this unit, especially against Minnesota this week, and then Arizona State and SC. This next 3 weeks, they got a chance to really turn some heads and play unbelievably good defense.
They do, and they could have turned heads this week, and I think that's probably what
they did.
And that's it. They I don't know. They tilted heads. They didn't get people to say, you know what, this is a top 25 team, but people are paying attention now at the very least. And they're going to be tuned in the next 3 weeks. First Minnesota, like you said, then Arizona State, USC. This is a real opportunity for them to take a step. And I want to run something by you. So I think that they've kind of found their identity. I think that the identity is you go man across the board, you leave a safety deep, and then kind of the key piece is leaving Nate Landman as a spy in the middle. Because when they just let him sit in there, and first of all, it lets him be free in the running game, make plays there. But he was breaking up passes in the middle of the field by reading the quarterback's eyes. I think they credit him with the 2 pass breakups. He's somebody who we've called a liability in coverage before, but it almost seems like this defense with those corners locking guys up outside, this just fits him perfectly.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that the liability and coverage thing is dying week by week, which is fantastic. I mean, that's what we want. And that's what he wants as a player. Nobody wants to have weaknesses talked about. So I think that the scheme that they're running and how aggressive it is and how in your face it is perfect, because it puts so much pressure on the other team's quarterback and the other team's offensive line to be on top of their game all the time. They have no down and distance can you sit around and sit back and go, okay, they're going to play it safe on this down. And they have the potential and the players to back up the way that they're playing. And Landman being able to roam, go out there, call the defense and roam sideline to sideline and make plays and play off instinct. That's what makes him great in the first place. So the pass rush has got to improve. Texas A&M's offensive line did a relatively good job. The quarterback got hurt on a scramble. The pass rush has to improve. The contain has to improve. The pursuit has to improve. Those are things that you can always improve. They're all effort-based. But at the same time, the good things that they're doing, they outweigh the negatives by, God, I don't know, 100% at this point, in my opinion. So it's hard to play defense like that in college football. It really is. Texas A&M is extremely explosive. I mean, they've got guys everywhere, and they looked on offense anemic And the issue is, though, so did we. So that has to be fixed, or we're going to have the best defense in the Pac-12 and win 6 games.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just looking ahead to this Minnesota game a little bit. Obviously, PJ Fleck up there, they want to use a lot of extra offensive linemen, put them in those tight end spots. They want to run a bunch of RPOs. I just feel so confident about this defense going up against that. Just knowing that you can put Christian Gonzalez man on man against any of those receivers. You can do the same with Mekhi Blackmon. It sounds like Chris Miller's probably back too. You don't need to worry too much about what's outside, and those guys can kind of take the passing part of the RPO out of the equation, and you just let Nate kind of plug things up inside. Am I crazy for thinking that this matchup just fits really well for what the Buffs want to do?
No, this is beautiful. I mean, you're getting Minnesota in Folsom at 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It's what, 10 a.m. their time, right? Minnesota Central, correct?
It goes the other way.
It'd be noon their time.
Yep.
Okay, so never mind. I mean, look, it's an advantage because of the altitude and the environment. Yep. And the heat. It's going to be hot on Saturday again. And the Buffs defense, look, I would think that they're going to play harder and more aggressive this week because of last week's outcome. Now everybody's backs against the wall and they're like, okay, there's no way we're dropping this game to Minnesota at home. And look, I watched Minnesota go toe to toe with Ohio State in the opener, but they lost their heart and soul on offense. Their running back, who's a draft pick, if he's healthy next year and does what he does, he got hurt. And that offensive line is huge, yes, but big offensive lines have problems with really athletic defensive lines that are long. And if you look at the contrast here with just Ohio State, we're going to use them as the example here because I've watched them play against Minnesota and then Oregon. Oregon's offensive line with Mario Cristobal and Marbell and how they like to do things, their gap scheme, they are downhill. They're just going to try and bludgeon you and move you. Now, Minnesota's physical and they put multiple offensive linemen on the field, but they're running a lot of zone scheme and movement stuff with huge offensive players. And Ohio State's defensive line was penetrating and eating that alive after Ibrahim got hurt. So with the Oregon scheme of gapping and moving people, they kicked Ohio State's ass up front. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at this like, okay, CU and their defensive line, how athletic they are and how Wilson is telling them to read the run on the way to the pass and how well that's working because of the penetration. If they can penetrate on Minnesota's offensive line the same way and at the same level that Ohio State did, which I believe they can, I think they're going to be in the backfield the entire game. And I don't think that the quarterback has the talent. He may have the desire, but far from the talent to beat us. And the receivers for Minnesota do not scare me one iota. So I think that this is an opportunity for Colorado to go out and put a beat down on the Gophers on Saturday. And I'm not saying they're going to just beat their ass or shut them out or anything, but I would expect, and I'm not going to guarantee, but I'm as close to a guarantee as I could get that this defense is going to play lights out again Saturday.
I think so. And just in talking with those guys today, I actually had a chance to talk with Chris Wilson today too. And all of them said, there's really no hangover from this. Like we had our 24 hours, we got back in the meeting room, everybody understands. And the vibes that I was getting was basically what you said, that they almost have even more of a chip on their shoulder after not winning last week. And I'm right there with you. The question, if it's going to be a blowout, is what's going to happen with the offense. Before we get to the offense, though, you mentioned Nate Landman is the guy who really stood out. Can you throw out just like 2 more names of defenders who really impressed you in that game?
Lang. I mean, I thought that Lang was everywhere. When they run the reverse and then the action off of it, and both guys just got murked, and 54 was on one of them. But you know what the thing that really impressed me the most about 54's performance was, look, bro, I've been hurt a lot in my life playing this game, and I love it, and I don't ever want to come off the field. So you can take my ass up and shoot me up with whatever you want, but I'm going fucking back in. And to watch that man walk off the field knowing that his ankle just got rolled up on like a son of a bitch, or his knee or whatever it was, and all he did was walk off and tape it and run back out there and contribute more and play as hard as he did. I was absolutely blown away by that performance. And I love him at 3 techniques. So I would assume that when Mustafa comes back, fingers crossed that sooner than later, I'd love to see him back against Arizona State or USC. You could put Lang and Mustafa inside at like a 2-eye 3 technique combo, and then 91 played his ass off. And I thought the interior defensive linemen, and I know Lang plays defensive end a lot too, they really, really played well. They were very, very aggressive. And then you said the guy earlier, Christian Gonzalez. Look, when you don't hear someone's name very much in a game and that someone plays corner, that's good.
Yep.
It's the Jalen Ramsey effect. That I was watching Sunday Night Football, and they were talking about last year when Jalen Ramsey was just playing one spot. You didn't hear his name a lot because no one threw the ball at him, and now they're like moving him around all over the place, and he's making plays everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think Christian Gonzalez is a first round talent in the defensive backfield, in my opinion, as a young player.
I agree, and obviously the coverability is what is most important. But he was doing everything. he had 2 tackles for loss in that game. There was
he's a stud, bro.
He didn't just take away his man. He took away a side of the field. And it's just so much fun to watch him develop. And like I said, I had a chance to catch up with him today, and I wanted to talk to him because he just lit up that Texas A&M offense. And he is so confident right now. And he's a quiet guy. He's not cocky. He's not a talker. But just to talk to him and say, like, it's got to be pretty nice just going out there and running man coverage and beating them consistently. He's like, yeah, we're a man team. That's what we do. And we think that any of these Pac-12 receiving groups, if they come up against us, we can go man and we're going to win. And that's the mentality right there.
It all feeds the other two, like the middle of the defense, the heart and soul 53 feeds the confidence of the front 4. The front 4 feed the confidence of Lamb feeds the confidence of the back 4. The way that they work together is so awesome to see, because it's the way that I grew up playing. Coach Wilson was on those staffs, and he adopted so much of what he's had from all over the place, from Mike Hankiewicz and all of his time at SC, and all of his time at Mississippi State, and all of his time at Oklahoma, and his time at Philadelphia with Fletcher Cox and all those animals that won a Super Bowl. If you look at the defensive scheme they're running in Boulder, and you go back and look at the teams that he was on in Philadelphia when they won the Super Bowl, it's the same shit. It's dominate up front, pursue and penetrate and pursue on defense and with the front 4, and have linebackers that run sideline to sideline, and defensive backs that are going to mug you up and make it so when you have space to run a 4-yard route with 12 yards of cushion, like they were last year with Tyson Summers, because he doesn't want to get beat. Well, now Wilson's cutting it down and saying, put hands on these motherfuckers at the point of attack, so our defensive linemen can actually get home, which they are. So
it's beautiful.
It's Henry. It is so fun to watch, bro, because I knew they had this potential. I've known they've had it. We've talked about it so many times. Like, I knew it. I knew that they were going to be like this. I knew how aggressive they were going to be taught. I knew how fundamentally sound they were going to be taught. And you're just watching a team that can read keys, that pursues and plays hard. They rotate in multiple guys on the defensive front. I'm really impressed with my guy, Trustin Oliver, honestly. He's only gotten a couple of plays, but he's out there making them. Keep your eye on 9. He's one of the freakish athletes I've ever worked with my entire life. And he had to go the JUCO route to get into school. And he's done everything he's supposed to do. And now he's on the field. That sumbitch is going to be a draft pick too one day. He is special.
Love to hear it. I just turned on this game again so that I could watch it while we talk. This is like my 4th time through, and I know everything that's coming, but just watching some of these third downs with Gonzalez out there. I think there were 2 in the first half where he was in man coverage. The quarterback threw the ball at him, one on a crosser where he's right on the guy's hip all the way across the field, and then breaks the pass up perfectly clean, just beautiful. And then there's another one where it's a little slant with a pick inside him, and he navigates the pick, catches back up, gets on his hip, and makes the window small. It is just beautiful to watch. And it's not fluky is the thing. Like you watch him play, and it isn't like he's getting lucky out there. He is just in perfect position every single play. And honestly, Mekhi Blackman's doing the same thing on the other side.
And Mekhi is a baller, bro.
It's beautiful. Like, you just have these two taking out everything on the boundary. And so you don't have to have, the slot guy kind of creeping out, playing a little zone over there just in case. You don't have to put a second safety deep because you're worried about it. You don't have to spread your linebackers in case things move. You just get to let everybody else focus on stuffing everything inside. And it's really hard to say that this defense, like the strength of it comes from anywhere other than Nate Landman, but it really does help to just have two lockdown corners.
It makes everything so easy on the rest of your team because it gives you an extra guy to roam around with at the line of scrimmage. And that's what you see them doing. Look, if they would have lost 10-7 to Cal or something, I would have been pretty pissed off. But they went toe to toe with a team that a lot of people think is a playoff caliber football team, even with the quarterback hurt. And the quarterback wasn't hurt when he started the game. They knocked his ass out the game. So I'm not advocating injury or anything, but when you knock the other person's quarterback out of the game because of physical football play, and that was, that's what was that? That was one, right, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, that was the play you're talking about earlier, where Lang got through and blew up the running back.
His ass. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't run the ball without expecting to get hurt by this defense.
Exactly. They're not trying to hurt you, but they are trying to run through you. And if you get hurt, then I don't know, lift more or something. I don't know what the answer to that question is. So
run on this defense is the answer. Don't run on Nate Landman.
Well, look, Henry, how looking at what we're looking at here, Minnesota is a quality football team. They're going to be a bowl team. Arizona State's a quality football team. They're going to be a bowl team. USC got their ass kicked on national TV against Stanford. And I was so excited to watch that because I've got so many guys that play for Stanford, but they, everybody wants to take it out on SC these days. And this may be our opportunity to finally get our win against those sons of bitches. So
I agree.
The next 3 weeks set the table, bro, in my opinion.
With USC, like, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves talking about it. But like you said, like, they got their asses kicked by Stanford. Stanford just beat them up in the trenches.
They beat the hell out of them. So
the week before, Kansas State beat Stanford up in the trenches.
And see, so that I was talking about that today on my podcast on McChesney Unchained. Everybody go check it out. We had the voice of the Broncos, Rick Lewis, on the show today. But we were talking about I was talking about that dynamic, like the Kansas State, how they dominated Stanford, and Stanford had to go look at themselves in the mirror, and they came back out with a chip on their shoulder. SC beat up San Jose State at home. And, the Spartans won the Mountain West last year, and they felt really good about that, just to turn around and get absolutely fucking manhandled by the Stanford Cardinals. So I'm looking at this like, look, CU lost a heartbreaking game on national TV, and I've heard a lot of very, very optimistic things about their defense, but at the same time, you're hearing this like narrative, like, Shiv's play calling is terrible, and they can't attack the middle of the field, and they got to do this and that, and can't Brandon Lewis play the position, and all this other bullshit that motivates these kids and the coaching staff, in my opinion, at a level that I think you're going to see an offensive explosion against Minnesota, and they can play defense. I just think that you're going to see that same kind of dynamic. You're going to see an angry defense that wants to prove that they are a top 25 caliber team, because they win that game, bro, they're ranked. And the offense now, they can pick up their game to a point and elevate it. And wouldn't you expect the offense to get better and better and better every week playing against this defense? Or let me ask you this, is it kind of like a Baltimore Raven dynamic when they had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, and like nobody wanted to go play quarterback there because they would just beat the shit out of them in practice all the time and like destroy their confidence? And that's a fact. Like that happened. So like, is that the dynamic in Boulder right now? The defense is just so much better than the offense that the offense can't find a way to like get their feet underneath them.
We're going to dig into that offense in just a second. And we're going to start with that question. To wrap up this defensive talk, before we take a quick break, before we get into the offense, I want to read 4 stats for you, and you're going to tell me which one you like the best.
Okay.
This comes from like the No Context College Football account, just to give them some credit. So Buffs defense gave up 10 points. That's the second worst for A&M under Jimbo Fisher. The defense gave up 288 total yards. That's the fourth worst under Jimbo Fisher. 14 first downs is the second worst, and 8 3-and-outs is the worst under Jimbo Fisher for Texas A&M.
That is impressive right there, brother.
Ugh, it's incredible.
Holy shit, that's impressive. I mean, bro, I watched Texas A&M beat the dog shit out of North Carolina last year. I watched them beat Florida's ass at Kyle Field like 40 points. Like they ran with Alabama for 3 quarters last year, and CU manhandled them on offense, bro. They couldn't function. I was sitting on the Texas A&M side for the first half with my sons, and those people were sitting there like, "What the hell's going on? I thought CU was just a Pac-12 team." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, man, that when you're hearing it from the other side, it just validates what you already thought you knew. So, bro, those numbers are nuts. And I'm look, I don't really like Texas A&M that much. We beat their ass twice in college, but I also lost to them my senior year in double overtime in Kyle Field. And the same way, like the disgust I had that day in the locker room. I was talking to Lawrence Vickers about this. We went to the game together, and Vic and I were sitting there, and I was with Tufts and James Gary and Wilder and Pesavento and a bunch of other cats. And all we could talk about was how we lost to them, not when we beat them. So that still sits in all of our crawls. Like everybody's still pissed off about it. And it's like 20 fucking years later almost. And so I can only imagine how motivated and pissed off those young men up there right now are just to get the taste out of their mouth. I mean, I would expect the defense to be absolutely mad dog fucking crazy Saturday.
I totally agree. Before we get into that game and a little bit more about the offense, gotta give a shout out to our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery. They make incredible beers. I love the Strawberry Sky. Some of you might be like more. I'm wearing a pink sweatshirt right now, so of course
Nice.
I'm gonna be shouting out Strawberry Sky and not like an IPA or something. But they have so much good stuff. I also like the seltzers. No surprise there. And we're gonna have a tailgate before this Minnesota game. Like kickoff is at 11. We'll be up there with the All Buffs crew at the north side of Farron Field starting at 8:30 in the morning. We'll have a bunch of Breckenridge beer. The All Buffs guys will have the grill going. There's a great time for the first game, the Northern Colorado game. I'm sure it's going to be a great time again. Hopefully we see you there. And if not, make sure you make it down to the DMVR bar because there's a whole bunch of cool stuff going on. They've got the watch party for the game. They'll have the sound on. You don't find that at very many bars. It's a cool place to watch a game, and they've got Breckenridge beers, which we really, really like. Also, need to give a shout out to Solace Meds. So Solace has a whole bunch of awesome monthly deals. And the best part is that if you use the code DNVR20, then you'll actually get 20% off of everything that you get, like your entire purchase after these deals. So here's what these deals are. You can get the Can America gummies for 25% off, the Strains tinctures for 20% off, Rockin' cartridges, 25% off, Glacier concentrates, 20% off. And they also, we're past Patriots Day. That means you guys missed out because you could have gotten buy 3, get the 4th for 10 cents. What a deal. What a deal. You losers didn't get in on it. Also, if you head to any location, and they have 4 awesome locations, one in Fort Collins, one in Wheat Ridge, one off of Broadway, one that's just blocks away on East Colfax from the DMVR bar. You can use that code DNVR20. You'll get 20% off, and you get a free Solace Bar King Cone. It's a great deal. We suggest you order online. It makes it super simple. You just got to run in there and pick it up. Just head to solacemeds.com. That's SOLACE meds.com. Make sure that you use that DNVR20 code. All right. So we got all the fun stuff out of the way, talking about the defense. The offense, not quite so inspiring. And you brought up, is it just tough to be a good offense when you're going up against that defense in practice? And here's what I can add. So we talked with Brady Russell yesterday. He was at the Buffs press conference, and somebody asked him, are you surprised that the passing game has had a bit of a slow start, or is this kind of what you expected? And what he said was that during camp, the passing game was great. Everything was going well. They were competitive with the defense. And so he is kind of surprised that they've had these struggles early on in the season. And I think that that's what you want to hear Although at some point you just got to see it translate to the field.
Yeah, and look, Brady is a leader and a captain of this football team. I'm not going to sit here and say that I like the rotating captains thing. I think that I was a captain for every game. You wear a C on your chest for a reason, and I personally don't like the rotating captain thing, but it is what it is. I think Brady and Nate should both have C's on their chest. I think that goes a very long way, honestly, in establishing who your leaders are. But that's just my opinion. I will say this. I did not anticipate the struggles of this offense at this point. Like the fact that they can't run the football consistently and they don't have the ability to really affect the defense with Broussard out of the backfield. And I haven't seen a ton of multiple tight end sets with Lynch and Pell and Brady on the field together, where you can like attack the middle of the field at different levels, like an Iowa State does. Mm-hmm. That they have the offensive personnel to really, really attack the defense in a lot of different ways. And just based on the play calling that we saw on Saturday, it seemed like, to me at least, they're trying to be physical and aggressive with Texas A&M, and it worked early. They got 6 points out of it, but running the ball at 92 over and over and over again in short yardage situations, there's a reason that guy's a first round draft pick this year. I mean, he was whipping Purcell's ass at the point of attack. And I think Colby would be the first one to say he was. So I think that their ability to run the ball is only going to help them throw the ball. And I'd like to think that Brandon Lewis has the ability to stand back there in the gun with 4 or 5 receivers on the field and throw it down the field. But Shiv has to trust his young man to do it too. So he's not at the point in his career where he's going to go out there and dictate to the defense, Henry, and like change the play. So this is on Coach Shiv to call plays that maximize his talent. And losing Chenault to suspension, that sucks. Stanley looks a little beat up, and Rice, I don't know what the hell is going on there and how that kid is so underutilized. So what are your thoughts on all this, man? Am I overanalyzing this and being too hard on Shiv and the offense?
I honestly don't know. I think that there's definitely reasons to not be quite as upset about the offense. I mean, with the first one being it's Texas A&M. And the truth is, they're not number 5 in the country because of their offense. They're number 5.
Well, they're 10th in the country now, so they penalized them like they lost.
It's true. It's true.
So keep that in mind. The voters or the guys who evaluate teams sat there and go, okay, drop these guys. They didn't play well. Now, all that said, I agree with you. They weren't playing Texas A&M, but bro, all those missed opportunities, the opportunity to have the opportunity to miss is number one, awesome. But when you're put in that situation, you have a running quarterback. Why are they sneaking twice in a row? If you're just going to sneak and they stop you the first time, take the points. You take them down 10-0. Mm-hmm. So there has to be more creativity when you have this kind of offensive personnel. I just don't see how that can get worked around, especially if you play that well toe-to-toe with a team and lose to them the way you did. It should be motivation to try and change the things that you can't fix instead of just keep trying to fix things that you can't change.
Yep. When it comes to the play calling, I think that the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, where they sneak both times, that's the one that really stands out to me. And I think you're absolutely right. You don't go at the best nose tackle in the country. I think that I really like the strategy, like in a vacuum. You know, if you're in a 4th and 1 down there, sneak the ball. But you have to adjust when you're going up against this particular defense with that particular player right across from where you're trying to get this yard.
Who does the same thing twice? What are we playing, a video game? Who does the same play twice, Henry?
I know. Well,
who does a 3rd and 1 sneak and then just goes out there and does the same damn thing?
I agree. And that's where
Carl Durrell didn't overturn that. That's my question is Coach Durrell had to know they were going to sneak it twice. Mm-hmm. Nobody on the sideline was like, no, don't sneak it twice.
I think they should have, first of all, challenged that 3rd down sneak, because I think there's a good chance he actually did pick that up. And then I agree, though. Like you gotta come up with something more creative just to get away from DeMarvin Leal right there. You know, whether it's some sort of little option, some read option, some like RPO, something.
Anything. You need half a yard.
You need half a yard. You need half a yard.
I mean, if you can't get a fucking yard, you don't deserve to win. And that, I don't know how many times I've heard that, but it's a lot. And I've heard it from Bill Parcells to Coach Wilson to the fucking GAs. If you can't get a yard, you're going to lose. And that was the turning point in the game, bro. Period. When they stopped them on 4th down, driving in to score, if CU goes up 14-0 right there, that game is over.
Absolutely. And
They start putting nails in their coffin, dude.
I totally agree. I do also think, though, that in the larger like picture of this whole game, losing Jarek Broussard for the second half, you know, I think they got him in there a couple times and maybe threw him the ball a couple times. It obviously took like the big hit after the Daniel Arias drop that kind of kept him out, but to not be able to hand the ball off to him once, for him not to get one carry in that second half. I mean, you can't be losing your best player against Texas A&M and expecting good things to happen. Now, should they have done better than like 5 straight 3-and-outs or whatever it was? Yeah, probably. But the truth is they moved the ball pretty well in that first half. You know, there's obviously the touchdown drive. They got all the way down there deep. They had another field goal attempt. And I think that what they did in that first half is an offense as a whole. You give them a solid B for that effort against that defense, right? It's just in the second half where things just fell apart. And without Jarek Broussard, what can you really expect against Texas A&M's defense?
Well, I would expect for the other backs that I watched all score in the first game and have that much explosion to step in and play. That's what I would expect, because I'm from an era at CU where we rotated in Purify, Cortland Johnson, Chris Brown on, so it doesn't really matter who's in the backfield. But look, when you throw Broussard into a squatting corner who breaks on him and annihilates his kneecap, you're not going to have him. Yep. So this is, look, Tom Brady, and not to sit here and like blow Tom Brady or anything, but he's the GOAT. At the beginning of the season, before they played Dallas, they were interviewing him, and he was talking about the lack of knowledge with quarterbacks and how it puts their offensive players in unwinnable situations because they don't know what they're reading, or they throw them into bad situations. So Brandon Lewis threw Broussard into an awful play and got him hurt. So that's a learning experience that they have got to learn from. The worst thing that they can do as a unit and as individual players right now is walk in there and be so frustrated about the situation that they take everything that's said in a manner that's not constructive towards growth. They can't act like the media does. They can't be discouraged and disgruntled like us. It's our job to have these emotions because we're trying to reiterate the emotions of the fan base, but also have a little bit of a constructive mindset on what they can do to fix it. That's why you and I are talking about this shit. But as the players and the coaches, if there's any sensitivity in that room about how to fix this, from the OC to the position coaches to the players, they won't fix it. And it'll rear its ugly head again this week, and it'll start getting contentious. And then there's going to be changes made, because at no point or time in life is Carl Durrell going to sit around and waste this defense. So changes need to come in the offensive line, in my opinion. They need, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if Lewis struggles, they look somewhere else at quarterback too, because that's just the way this works. I'm not calling for him to get benched by any means. I'm saying that at some point, just like they just did with the University of Texas and they just did at Stanford, the other guys on the roster are going to get a look if the other guy isn't doing what the coach wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get into Brendan Lewis a little bit deeper now. We'll talk offensive line in a second. Here's my evaluation. Just to sum it all up and oversimplify. I think that Brendan Lewis looked better this week than he did last week, although by a pretty slight margin. And the reason I think that he did take a little step forward is because after that first game, the biggest complaint was they just held onto the ball too long. And this week, these numbers are from Pro Football Focus. He went from 4.78 seconds before he threw the ball to 2.65, a full 2 seconds faster. He was getting rid of the ball. I thought we saw some of that. I thought he was more decisive. And while there were a couple of missed throws, a couple balls that kind of floated on him a little bit, a couple of balls that just weren't where they need to be. I thought in general he looked better, although still not where he needs to be for this team to compete for a Pac-12 title.
I agree that he made more decisive decisions. No one's saying he didn't. I agree with you. We definitely saw that. You know what you were looking at. I know what I was looking at. The ball was coming out faster, no doubt. They were calling plays that get the balls that gets the ball out quick as well. That said, I feel like everything he did on Saturday was predetermined by Coach Schiff. I think Coach Schiff sat there during the week and said, this is who you're throwing the ball to on this play. This is who you're throwing the ball to on this play. I don't even think he was trying to go through his reads, bro. I think he was just out there trying to get rid of the goddamn ball. And unfortunately, when you're playing quarterback like that and you're only focused on trying to get rid of the ball to the one guy the coach wants you to get the ball to on that particular play, it cuts down on looking at other opportunities down the field. And then when you take a shot down the field and old boy drops the ball, that immediately deters the offensive coordinator from taking another shot because it's a wasted play. So it's got to be give and take here. The offensive coordinator has got to feed the quarterback the confidence to not only look at the first read, but look at the second read as well and still be able to get rid of the ball in the same amount of time, because you know as well as I do, elite quarterback play is determined on your ability to process information and get rid of the football in a very, very, very fast manner. And it damn sure ain't 5 seconds, bro. You give me 5 seconds when I'm playing three technique and I'm fucking running his ass over every time. So it is an improvement, but that is the only thing that improved in my opinion, because I didn't like the decision making. I didn't like some of the tight window throws. I really didn't like the fact that they didn't double move anybody the whole game. They didn't run any seam routes with their tight ends, that Alec Pell wasn't maximized. I mean, that son bitch could run, and they didn't even throw him the ball. So I think it's a bigger problem than just 12, but he really needs to figure out if he's going to be a game manager or if he's going to be a defense exposer, because that's the guys who expose defenses in college are good quarterbacks. Game managers in college football are a dime a dozen. You can find a game manager just about anywhere. I mean, JT Stroud's probably a game manager as he's hurt. So is this problem a lack of competition in the room, in your opinion? Because Lewis was playing pretty well when he was being pushed, and then the guy that was pushing him got hurt, and now he doesn't have any competition in the room from what we think. So what's your opinion on that? How you feel about that?
I think it's big. I think that's really big. And, you brought up the fact that, if the guy isn't getting it done, you go to another guy.
You have to.
Yep. Well, I think that there's a good chance that would have happened if there was a JT Shrout in that room. I just think that the difference between JT Shrout and the true freshman, who's currently the number 2, is so wide that it's going to take a lot more, some more failures from Brendan for him to get benched. And I think because of that, I think maybe we saw some of that in the Northern Colorado game. He's not going out there against Northern Colorado saying, I need to impress to keep this job. He's going out there saying, just don't make any mistakes. As long as I don't leave this game, with it being close at the end or with 2-3 interceptions, something like that, then this is my job. And I do think that it really does hurt. And I think that it's also good for him to just have another good arm in practice. When it's just him and then there's a drop off to the 2 true freshmen and the walk-on transfer from the D3 school, you just need something to push you. You just need something to push you. And it absolutely does not help him to not have JT Shrout in there. And that's on top of the fact that JT, there was a very real chance, probably a 50-50 chance he was going to be the opening day starter anyway.
All right. Well, that's pretty much how I feel about the situation as well. So
Glad we're on
look,
the
man, I would not be surprised at all if they go back into the transfer portal this offseason to find another quarterback to push 12. And I'm of the mindset, because of my time at Colorado and the way that I've seen Colorado quarterback play since I was a whip, other than like Cordell Stewart and Hagen, even Coy Detmer, and Coy Detmer was great too, but those three are probably the best three that I grew up watching. But even Coy had John Hessler. And, you know, when I was there and Craig Oakes was the man, Bobby Pesavento is the one that won us the Big 12 championship, and he's the quarterback at CU that everybody reveres. And when Robert Hodge was there in 2002, we had Joel Klatt on that roster. Like, if Klatt plays in 02, because he could have done exactly what he did in 02 or in 03 and 02, I think we win the Big 12 title. So it's on the coaches to think outside the box at the quarterback position, because look, Jordan Worthington, the true freshman kid from Durango, is one of my guys, and he has got a goddamn cannon for an arm. I don't know if he's ready to play college football, but I know he's talented. And the second string kid, what's his name again? Henry?
Chase Penry.
No. The second string quarterback kid.
Oh, quarterback, Drew Carter.
He was a highly touted kid as well.
For sure.
And, you know, I guarantee you he has talent. And it's not like Brandon Lewis is a vet. He might as well be a true freshman, bro. This is his first time playing in his life. So, you know, what's very intriguing to me is, and I hate to put this out there like this, but the left-hander McCown that's coming in,
yep,
that kid can play, bro. And I know it's high school and everybody can play in high school, but shit, that kid can play, and that he's going to walk in and push as well. So it's good to have a little bit of depth in the quarterback room. It's good to have veterans, and they don't have depth and they don't have veterans. So that is a very, look, if Lewis goes down, I'm scared shitless on what happens to this team.
Absolutely.
I'm scared when he's healthy and he starts, and I'm still freaked out. So just because everybody can take away, look, it's making me question whether or not we should have gotten rid of Neuer. And I know Neuer isn't doing great at Oregon State, but Oregon State's not CU. Oregon State isn't any good. CU's pretty good. So it's making me kind of reevaluate the whole Neuer going somewhere else thing, because if they were really, really relying on Stroud that much and he was their only backup plan in college football, this isn't the league where you can bring in somebody off the street. You know, like you are what you are at that position. Once you start training camp, you can't go out and get anybody. So if he was the only cat we had that we trusted with the football, and he goes down, and now I'm not saying stuck with 12, but there's not another option unless there's injury. You don't see him getting benched, do you? I mean, he'd have to go out and really shit down his leg to get benched.
He would, I imagine. And again, like, we don't get to see practices. And so what we know is that the only other option at this point, or the best option at this point, is Drew Carter, who got to campus this spring, was getting third team reps, which is not many reps when there's a quarterback competition going on. And I guess at that point, Neuer was still there. So he was behind Neuer too.
Yep.
And as soon as Stroud goes down, he becomes the number 2, and he's been getting significant reps in practice for about a month now. And
let me ask you a question.
That's not nearly enough, but maybe he's just so talented that it is.
Let me ask you a question. If something were to happen to Lewis, do you think they would potentially think about putting Matt Lynch back at quarterback and just running quarterback power Cepho style at people?
I think so. I think
Matt Lynch can play quarterback, bro. I've seen him do it at a very high level. He's one of my guys too. So that's got to be an idea in their head as well, knowing that he used to be a quarterback and he could sling it too.
I bet if something were to happen to Brendan and for some reason he can't play, then I do think they switch Lynch to quarterback and get him trained up. I don't know if he starts over Drew Carter or not. I guess that during the transition, when you're like teaching Matt the offense from that perspective, I don't even know how much that would take. I guess it's more just getting into the flow of footwork and getting that.
Well, yeah, it would be a timing and footwork thing. I guarantee you he knows the playbook. That wouldn't be the issue at all. I guarantee you he could walk in there and do it. It would be about trying to accommodate the talent level and being like, okay, he's a big tight end now, but he did play quarterback. Let's line up and just bludgeon people with quarterback power and just run down their throat. So
Exactly.
I think they
style.
can do that. I think they can do that now. I love the plays with getting Lewis on the edge on zone read and the bootlegs. Those were the best plays of the game. Was when 12 was out in the field running. Those were their most explosive plays. So they need to do that more. I'm surprised they didn't do it more. I'm shocked that they didn't. I would have ran in that game alone on Saturday. I would have ran Brandon Lewis 25 times.
I think that you're probably onto something. And after the game, Carl said the reason they didn't run him more in the second half was just because so much of that was a read option where Texas A&M in the second half said, we can't be letting Brendan beat us because he's carving us up, force him to hand the ball off, and that's what happened. And at the same time, in going back and watching, there was at least one play where he handed the ball off for like a 2-yard loss when there was a big hole opening up in front of him. And it was just a little mistake. But to go back to the quarterback stuff, first of all, if Sam Neuer or if the Buffs knew they wouldn't have JT Shrout, Sam Neuer absolutely sticks around because I bet he thinks at the very least he has a chance to beat out Brendan. If not, he's the number 2 and he's the number 2 behind a running quarterback. I think he does stick around. They just didn't know that at the time. The other thing is with if Brendan were to get hurt, and we'll knock on wood for that one, I think that you switch Matt Lynch to quarterback, but you probably give Drew Carter 1 to 2 starts during that transition period, and then you make the decision.
See what he is. Yeah,
and
I
then
agree.
If you need to put in Lynch, you put in Lynch. If not, you keep rolling with Drew Carter. And also, next year's quarterbacks, it's obviously going to be a better room than this year because you don't lose anybody. You've got more guys with more experience in Brendan Lewis and Drew Carter. You've got JT Shrout back from injury. And like you said, you've got Owen McCown on campus too. It's just a tough year to be losing a quarterback in that room.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. So let's just pray that 12 stays healthy and keeps progressing. And I think he will. I mean, I like the mental makeup of the kid, and I think he's pretty tough. And again, as a competitor, when things like this happen and you lose a game you think you should have won, they'll never forget it. And it should be the motivating factor to push them in the right direction, for the rest of the year. So look, realistically, and I hate to say this being the grunt that I am, but it all comes down to the front as well. And I wasn't disappointed, but I damn sure wasn't impressed with what I saw on Saturday from the offensive line.
I think that's fair. And just for context, we talked about this last week. There were 8 guys who were rotating in. We saw that get narrowed down a little bit with the only change to the starting lineup. Well, I guess there were 2. So Jake Wiley switches from left tackle to right tackle. And you have Max Ray starting at left tackle with Chance Lytle going to the bench. Now, there was a change about 2/3 of the way through, I guess, sometime in the second half. And Casey Roddick came in at right guard for Kanan Ray. And so those were the 6. So just to go across the line, it was left tackle, Max Ray, Kari Cooch next to him, Purcell, Kanan Ray, and then Jake Wiley with Roddick subbing in at that right guard spot. You get Frank Phillip back probably this week. I think he started at right tackle last year. I'm not sure if he'll go to right tackle and be a starter, go to left tackle and be the starter. But to be honest, I was pretty disappointed with those tackles in particular this week. I do think that straight off the injury, you probably get Frank back in there.
Yeah, and look, if I'm running the offensive line right now, I'm putting Casey at right guard or left guard, one of the two, and we're rolling. And he doesn't break the offense. He doesn't break the starting lineup again. From a benching standpoint, he's starting for the rest of the year. He's your best interior offensive lineman. He's salty. He's mean at the point of attack, and he moves people. And he just keeps getting better and better the more I watch him. And I know damn well that he was absolutely infuriated that he didn't get to play more in that game. And I think it was a bad move not playing him. I like Ray. I like 54, but he struggled in the game bad. But so did Colby. So are they going to figure out what's going to go on at center and rotate more guys in there? I thought that Carey played okay, but not great. I think your left guard needs to be your point of attack player. The tackles have got to figure their shit out. I thought Jake Wiley played good at times, but also got exposed. And I thought Ray is exactly what I said when we talked about him earlier, that he looks the part, he's an athlete and all this other stuff. But when it comes down to it, and he needs to go compete, he gets exposed. And I saw that a couple of times too. So, you know, I if I'm running that offensive line unit right now, I'm starting Philippe at left tackle. I'm starting Jake Wiley at right. I'm putting Roddick at right guard, and I'm going to see if 54 can snap and maybe, you know, put 54 at center and see if he can play that. He's a little bit bigger and more physical than Colby. Colby really got exposed. 92 whipped Kobe's ass. I mean, that's just, I'm not trying to talk shit about the guy, man. This is just the business that we're in. I mean, we can sit here and be like, you know, he really didn't play well and all these nice guy adjectives, or we can just be like, look, we can pull a Taylor Lewan and be like, look, I got my ass beat and I'm going to get better. And that's the way that offensive linemen need to think. So, but also, you know, Carey being at left guard, I'm not overly impressed with the ability to move people off the point. And that's what guards are there to do. You're there to move the other. There's three of you. If we can't move two, we might as well have two. So they've got to figure out if they're going to run this like stretch zone or if they're going to bludgeon people. Are we going to do both? But not getting to the point where it doesn't look like we can do either because we're trying to do both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that does make sense. And I think that it's just kind of frustrating is what it is.
It's super frustrating, bro. Like last year they were gutting people running the football. And this year it doesn't look like they can run the football a fucking lick. And that doesn't usually work like that. You usually get better running the football after you've had success doing it. So again, it's got to be one. Look, I'm not saying they have to be one or the other. You can run gap scheme and zone scheme together. But there's a couple of things that were very, very big indicators of coaching and game plan. Number one, every time they ran zone, the guards would like sprint to the second level to get to the linebackers, and the three technique and the two eyes and the one techniques would like they would bludgeon the backside double team player, and it's called point and drive. So the point player, the post player, is the guard who's got to play hard into the three technique and rotate his shoulders in a way where he's not square so we can climb and attack that gap. Because if he stays square, he just fills the hole. And then the other guy's called the drive player, and then he's supposed to be pushing the hip as they climb to the linebackers. Well, they weren't going after the down linemen very much at all. Like they were just sprinting off and like barely touching them. And the down linemen were making the plays at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. And that, if you're not going to post the three technique and turn his shoulders and pay him the mind that he needs to be paid, there's no seam to run in. So I'm very eager to like see them improve on that. But my biggest fear here is that Coach Rod isn't harping on the Rico double teams and the heavy calls rather than trying to chase linebackers. Let's climb to them and make them play over the top. A lot of that has to do with the personnel groupings, but a lot of it has to do also with what they're being taught in individual drill for that week's install. So, you know, good offensive football teams can do both. But great offensive football teams that can run the ball do one of the two exceptional. And I think they're average at both right now. And that's not the way it should be working with that front and that personnel. I mean, I know a lot of those kids, and I've watched them have success last year, and I've seen them at times have some success this year, although it was against UNC. But they couldn't run the ball a fucking lick the other day against Texas A&M. And honestly, they were running it, and I felt like they had some success, but they didn't build off of it as the game went.
I agree. And again, it definitely makes it look worse when you don't have Jarek out there who just makes everything easier. I think that it's so easy to look at Jarek and say, like, yeah, his best trait is his ability to cut it back and see like the backside running lanes open up. But at the same time, those don't open up for just anybody. He is so fast and stretches the defense and stresses those edges so much that he gets those cutback lanes. And I think that can make the offensive line look a lot better because he creates some of those holes himself. And then as soon as you lose Jarek in that second half, there's just nowhere for these running backs to go.
So who else do we want to see in the backfield then more? Let's say 23 doesn't get a lot of run this week because they're trying to get him healthy for Arizona State, which I absolutely could see happening. Who's getting the run?
I mean, I think what we want to see is Rashad Clayton, right? Which a note on him, by the way, we talked a lot about the vision developing and how they didn't want him to run the zone runs last year. He had 3 carries this week, all gap, which, just that trend continuing. And maybe, again, a hint at what the coaching staff thinks of his vision. But I think that it's probably Alex Fontenot getting, call it 50%. I think it's Rashad getting 30%. And then that other 20%, if Jarek isn't going to go, I think that while they could just give those reps to those other 2 running backs, I think they want to see some Deion Smith. And I think that he probably is next up in that group, with Jay Lee being kind of just a pure fullback at this point, I think, with next year maybe diversifying that a little bit.
Well, I would love Lewis to be the main ball carrier this week. If
That's a good point.
Broussard's not going to be there, you're building on what we were talking about earlier, just for the simple fact that I love Clayton. He looks the part, but I think that he's one of those guys that if he gets 20 carries, he could probably do some damage. But again, if we're just going to tease everybody with 3 carries with the kid and they're all going to be the same thing, look, if you and I can see this, if you can see the fact that all they do is gap, well, so can the defensive coordinator at Minnesota. He's going to, okay, Clayton's in the game. They're just going to run gap. Mm-hmm. Oh, and now Fontenot's in the game, and now they're going to run zone. There's no zone back gap. There's no zone backs and gap backs. There's running backs, but I don't know any guys who just run zone and just run gap. I mean, that shit is ridiculous right there. So again, they're supposed to have depth and be diverse in the room from the running back position. And it just doesn't seem like they are, with the exception of 23. And they threw him into a flat route that blew his knee out. So
yep.
I really hope that it's just a bone bruise or like a slight meniscus or something, because he's had so many lower body problems up to this point, and it doesn't manifest into something that can't be fixed all year, because they need him to get back to what they were. If you can combine 70% of last year's offense with this defense, they may lose only one more game. And I think the game at Oregon is going to be an uphill battle, no less. They're fucking good. But the Buffs have a chance in every other game to go out there and win handily because of how good their defense is.
Yep. And I mean, again, we talked about this, but Stanford got dominated in the trenches by Kansas State, didn't score a point. And then the next week put up 42 on USC.
42!
Dominating in the trenches. That goes to show what that USC defense is. And I think that you look across the Pac-12, and you have Utah always going to be solid up there. And Stanford is better than they showed against Kansas State, obviously. Oregon is Oregon. But when you look at the start of the schedule, you should be able to run on Arizona State, and you should be able to bludgeon them up front on the other side. The next week you've got USC. It's the same thing. I think that when you look through this schedule, like you said, they can beat any of these teams. They just kind of have to go do it. I will say, though, this Minnesota game is going to be a big one, because you start with Northern Colorado, and that's just not a competitive opponent. Then you go to Texas A&M, and that is a really good football team, better than probably all but 1 or 2 teams that Colorado is going to play all season. So what happens when you play Minnesota? Does this offensive line all of a sudden look a little bit better because they aren't going up against a bunch of guys who are all of them 315 pounds in the trenches? Do these running backs start to look more like they did against Northern Colorado? Because I think at the very least they split the difference. And we just need to see what is that number? What is Alex Fontenot? Is he a 4-yard per carry guy against Minnesota after being whatever he was, a 3-yard per carry guy against A&M? Or is he like a 5-yard per carry guy? And then you get really excited. And so I do think that this is going to be one of these games where we see, okay, this is a team that is comparable to a lot of Colorado's Pac-12 opponents. Are they able to put up at least 25 points? And then you could really start to buy in, I think.
And they have the potential to do it. There's no doubt. They have the personnel to do it. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yep.
And I'd be very interested to see how many different run looks they actually have in the game plan.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting in the meeting room, but how many outside toss plays out of bunch do they have? How many like flanker reverses? I haven't seen anything like that. No creativity on a lot of motion and the things that make the stretch defense or the spread offense, the spread offense so effective and so lethal to defenses everywhere is because of movement and speed and getting on the edges. And the ability for you would think CU has the personnel to do that.
Absolutely.
But it seems like they're stuck in this rut where they're running the same running plays over and over and over again into the teeth of a defense that knows they're about to run the same play over and over and over again.
Yep.
So where are the trap plays? Where's the pure power? Where's the double pull counter that we saw? I didn't see double pull counter once.
And
So
on top of that, we see the bubble screens and that kind of stuff. But like you said, those jet sweeps, those end arounds, those
never see it.
There's just a little bit more that can be done. And I'm excited to see if it's going to happen, just because you think if we're sitting here saying it, they're saying the same thing. Like, we have Dimitri Stanley, we have Brendan Rice. Yes, we can get them the ball in bubble screens. Yes, we can run some passing routes, obviously, but can we also just manufacture a couple more even easier touches than those bubble screens? Because that, like you said, that is kind of the fun part of a spread offense is just attacking those defensive ends in a bunch of different ways, because there is space right there.
Let me ask you something. Two guys. Are you severely disappointed in the wide receiver room and how they've played up to this point? Because I am almost like disgusted.
I think.
Look. Number one, I think Rice is. Well, how can you not be? Chenault's suspended, so he's obviously doing something off the field he shouldn't be doing. And look, man, I got suspended in my college career. I got arrested multiple times and suspended. I'm not ashamed of it. But Coach Barnett was of the reform mindset, and I loved hearing Coach Durrell say that. We've got to come back and reform him a little bit and get him right. And he knows what he has to do to get back on the team, and God willing, he will. But, bro, like, the lack of creativity with those guys, number one. And then if Brendan Rice is what we think he is, Lewis should be able to step back and throw the ball up to him.
Exactly.
In college, and he should be dominating, and he's not even on the field. You'd be hard pressed to even tell me he's got more than 5 catches on the year.
He doesn't. He does not.
Well, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable for that quarterback, for that wide receiver room, especially when the offensive coordinator is the position coach. Yep. So what's the answer on that one right there? Because it looks to me like I overvalued the receiver room unbelievably, if that's what is really happening. And I'm just hoping that it was Texas A&M's outstanding defense also doing the same thing that our outstanding defense did to them.
Yep. And the reason I can't quite get to disgusted by the receiving room is just because I'm not sure how much of the blame should be placed on them versus on the play calling and versus just straight up on